Dear colleagues, welcome to this short video on polarity analysis. We will show you here an introduction into the method, and you will get a glimpse at this new fascinating tool in homeopathy. It is the place from where I'm speaking to you. It's our practice in Laupen, Switzerland, beneath the Alps. And this is the view from our practice. That's me. So let's get into it. What is polarity analysis? Polarity analysis is a repertorization method based on Bönninghausen's therapeutic pocketbook, and it allows precise, efficient, and reproducible homeopathic remedy determinations. And it increases the success of our prescriptions by calculating a probability of healing for each of the remedies in question. Polarity analysis is the result of 30 years of research aimed at improving homeopathic remedy determination. And its breakthrough came during the Swiss ADHD double-blind trial, where it proved the significant treatment effect of homeopathic remedies. On this figure on the right side, you see what polarity analysis did during the study. In the first 9 months, we were searching for the remedies without using polarity analysis. And you see here the speed by which we reach the eligibility for the entry into the double-blind phase of the study. And this speed was much too low in the beginning. So at this point, I got the idea of polarity analysis. And you see at once, using it, this speed increased dramatically. And it actually is the reason why the study was successful. How does polarity analysis function? The focus is in the repertorization is on reliable symptoms, and that is especially modalities and polar symptoms. They are what is really characteristic and individual about the disease. The special things about the symptoms. Now, how many symptoms are reliable? What symptoms are reliable? We divided in Bönninghausen's pocketbook 1846 the symptoms into 3 reliability categories. And you see here we have only 6% of all symptoms that are really highly reliable. There is little awareness in homeopathy that this is so, but this is actually very important if we want to make successful prescriptions. Then we have 34% who have an intermediate reliability and 60% who have a low reliability. What does that mean? High reliability have especially modalities and polar symptoms. Intermediate reliability have often localizations and physical findings that are not disputable. And a low reliability we find in symptoms that are subject to interpretation. In our software, you can recognize the reliability of each symptom by the color that is on the left side of the symptom. Here you see the green color marks highly reliable symptoms, modalities, and polar symptoms. The yellow colors marks symptoms of intermediate reliability, and the red color marks symptoms of low reliability. So actually, in remedy determination, we aim to use, if ever possible, only highly reliable symptoms. Now I show you a practical case. It is a 3-year-old girl named Vivienne who suffers since 5 days of severe pain when swallowing. She has a coryza, cough, and high fever, 39 degrees Celsius. And she's apathetic, complains about abdominal pain, does not want to move, eat, or drink, and dislikes to be touched. In an emergency clinic, she has received an antibiotic 3 days ago, but the only effect of this is diarrhea. Upon examination, the girl is pale with dark rings around the eyes. The tonsils are swollen and covered with a white membrane. The cervical lymph nodes enlarged, tender to touch and pressure, and the spleen is also slightly enlarged. So we have a high suspicion of infectious mononucleosis, that is glandular fever. To confirm this, we make a laboratory examination and we find a monocytosis in a blood examination of 18%, which is actually diagnostic for this glandular fever. Now, the mother gets a checklist with reliable symptoms, and she has to mark on this checklist what she has observed now since the child is ill. Here you see the checklist, front side, there is also a back side. It's 160 very good symptoms for remedy determination. And we aim in every case to get between 8 and 16 important symptoms to determine the remedy. She marks the following. Swallowing is painful. She is sensitive to pressure on the lymph nodes of the neck, sensitive to touch, to movement aggravates, standing aggravates, uncovering aggravates. After sleep, she is worse and the salivation is increased. And all these symptoms you see are marked with a P, that is, they are polar symptoms. And they are actually the most characteristic symptoms of this case. Now, this is the repertorization. We just enter all these symptoms. And you see, first of all, she has many remedies that cover everything. And we have a high polarity difference, especially in hepar sulfuris. Second would be Staphysagra, then magnesium carb and camphora. The remedies that are shaded gray have contraindications. We will explain that to you later on. Now, here what you see, and I want to explain to you what the polarity difference is. If we add all the grades of the polar patient symptoms, these here, these are polar patient symptoms, if we add them, we come up with 25 points. Below the red line, we have the opposite poles of the polar patient symptoms. You see here, swallowing aggravates, the opposite pole is swallowing improves, pressure aggravates, pressure improves. So we also add the grades of the opposite poles and we subtract them from the sum of grades of the polar patient symptoms. Here you see we have 5 points, so it is 25 minus 5. That makes this polarity difference. In other words, every grade up here is an argument for this remedy in this case. And every grade down here is an argument against, because it's the opposite of the patient symptoms, against this remedy. Polarity difference gives us an indication, a healing probability for each remedy. So you see here hepar sulfuris, very high polarity difference, most likely this remedy will cure the patient. So I give her hepar sulfuris C200. 2 hours later, she begins to play. After 4 days, everything is much better, no fever and no pain anymore, but she still coughs and has a rash around the mouth. Because hepar sulfur has been so successful, I just repeat the dose. At the follow-up next week, everything is normal. To appreciate this course of cure, you have to know that the usual duration of infectious mononucleosis is up to 12 weeks. So we have a very fast cure in this child. What is special now? In traditional homeopathic schools, we have been taught to use the totality of symptoms for repertorization. Every symptom is entered. And in polarity analysis, we use only the most characteristic symptoms. And our experience is that the resulting remedy, if you look the other non-entered symptoms up in the materia medica, that this remedy also covers them as well. So you don't really need to enter the non-specific symptoms to get the right remedy. Then we introduce a new method into homeopathy. It is very important to evaluate it, to see if the results of this new approach are better or worse than what we did before. And to do an evaluation, you have to define outcome criteria. Our outcome criteria have always been the same. We look at first hits. In acute disease, that means a cure within 2 days with the first remedy we gave to the patient. I always give the parents a second reserve remedy along, which they can apply if after 2 days the patient is not at least 50% better than before. So a second hit is a cure within another 2 days with this reserve remedy. So after 4 days, they should be cured. If that is not the case, we count the patient as no reaction. Neither the main nor the reserve remedy cures the patient. And now I show you the result. We looked at first, second hit and no reaction in 256 patients with a variety of acute disease as we see them in our practice. It was a normal mixture of a pediatric practice. You see we had 56% first hits and 31% second hits. That means 87% of the patients were cured within 4 days. And in 13% we had no reaction. Now, this is a simple thing to treat acute patients in homeopathy with polarity analysis. The question is, does it also function in complex cases? And to know that, we evaluated the method in multimorbid patients. The definition of multimorbidity is that a patient has to have 3 or more chronic diagnoses. And in this study, we looked at the improvement in 50 patients who were checked every month, and they had to make a rating of the improvement of each disease in percent every month. And they also had to make a global rating of improvement of all their diseases every month. We defined successful treatment in this study as 80% global improvement after 12 months. Here you see the improvement curve of these patients. We had 43 of the 50 patients who completed the study and who reached this improvement of at least 80%. Actually, the final average improvement was 91% after 12 months. And you see here a typical improvement curve in a biological system as the human being is. You see at the beginning, we have quite a steep increase in improvement. Actually, it is 46% within 1 month. After the second month, this increase is a little less, but it goes up to 64%. And then the further steps are always smaller. So we end up to approaching asymptotically the 100% line here. This is very typical for cure by homeopathy in chronic disease. So the curve shows that the system functions too in complex patients. The reason why we fear this is that the contraindications might lead to a situation where we don't find a remedy anymore without any contraindications because these patients have so many symptoms. It's not the case. So what are the preconditions for success? The patients must learn to observe their symptoms. That is very important. Actually, this is the most important point at all. And we have checklists to facilitate this observation process. And you can download them from our website, or they're also included on our software. The patients can use them at home, and they can bring them to the practice so we don't lose time with them filling out the checklist. It is really important that our patients know that they are a partner in the treatment of their disease. It's not like in conventional medicine where people come and say, "Doctor, see, I have a problem, you solve it." We solve it here together, and that's why their contribution is so important. I notice in my practice that usually the parents learn quickly how to observe symptoms, and they do a good job in that if we instruct them well. Now, how do we know that we have a right remedy? Polarity analysis is like a puzzle. In this puzzle, the symptoms must fit together, and if they do, we have a high polarity difference for one remedy, an outstanding, like we just saw in this case of infectious mononucleosis. If they don't fit together, we have a flat distribution of polarity difference values. None of the remedies has a high polarity difference. They have differences between 3, 5, 6, 2 points. So this is a situation in which you have wrong symptoms in the repertorization. And one thing we have to learn in polarity analysis is to find out which ones they could be. So this is actually maybe the most difficult thing about it. But if you begin to use it, you soon get a feeling for how this functions and which things are right, which ones are wrong. For the start, I suggest that you begin with the treatment of acute disease, which is easy. And don't mix polarity analysis with other methods. That will not function. I always recommend in my seminaries that when you begin to use polarity analysis, you make an outcome protocol and look at the outcome of all of your cases from the day you begin. And you will see that your results are improving. And by that, you get confidence in the method. Consequence of polarity analysis is as shown here. I don't know if you remember how it felt when you were a novice in homeopathy. That was my feeling here. I saw Himalaya before me, that was homeopathy, and I felt really very, very small and thought to know all I should know will take a long, long time. In fact, when we use polarity analysis, we are much faster in understanding and in getting successful treatments. So it is very useful to begin with your students or as a student with polarity analysis, and only if necessary move on later to the more complex method we have in homeopathy. How do we go on? We will make further videos which will explain you the principles of polarity analysis in detail. We will show you how to make a correct case analysis. We will show you how to master difficulties and introduce you to some important outcome studies. That's it for the moment. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you soon again in another video. Bye-bye.